AITA for sabotaging the ship I was enslaved on. Atlantic slave trade, 1780. What is freedom worth? How many lives? How much suffering? In 1780, one man made a choice that would haunt him for the rest of his days. A choice between certain slavery and uncertain death. A choice that killed 30 people but freed 12 others. Welcome back to If Reddit Existed Back Then, where we explore the impossible moral dilemmas of people throughout history. Today, we're traveling to the Atlantic Ocean in the year 1780, aboard a ship carrying human cargo across the Middle Passage, where one man decided that death was better than chains. This is one of the most difficult stories we've ever told. It deals with the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade, one of the greatest crimes in human history. We tell it not to exploit that suffering, but to honor the impossible choices faced by those who endured it. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, and please stay until the end. This story matters. Let's read his post. Air Middle Passage, posted by user Kofi off the Gold Coast in the year 1780. Title: Am I the asshole for sabotaging a slave ship and causing the deaths of 30 people, including other enslaved Africans, so that some of us could escape? My name was Kofi. I say was, because that name belongs to a man who died the day they put him in chains. The man I am now has no name, just a brand on his shoulder and memories that won't let him sleep. 3 months ago, I was a free man in the kingdom of Ashanti on the Gold Coast of Africa. I was 26 years old. I had a wife named Abena and 2 children, a daughter of 5 and a son of 3. I was a fisherman like my father, like his father before him. I knew the ocean, like I knew my own heartbeat. Now, I'm writing this from a cave on an island I don't know the name of, somewhere in the Caribbean Sea. There are 11 other survivors with me. We escaped. We're free, if you can call hiding in a cave and eating raw fish freedom, but 30 people died because of what I did, and I need to know if their blood is on my hands or on the hands of the men who put us on that ship. Let me tell you what happened. All of it, even the parts I wish I could forget. It started with a raid. That's how it always starts. Rival tribes, working with European traders, attacking villages in the night. They came for us just before dawn, when the sky was still gray and the cooking fires were just being lit. I heard the screams. Before I saw the men, I grabbed my fishing spear and ran outside. There were maybe 20 of them, armed with muskets and machetes. They were rounding up everyone they could find. Men, women, children, anyone strong enough to survive the journey, I thought. I killed 2 of them before they brought me down. A musket ball grazed my shoulder. Then someone hit me from behind, and everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in chains. My wife was next to me. My children were gone. I screamed for them, begged for them, but no one answered. I never saw them again. I don't know if they're dead, or if they were sold separately, or if they're still in Africa wondering what happened to their father. Not knowing is the worst part. Even now, even after everything, not knowing about my children is the thing that keeps me awake at night. They marched us to the coast. It took 2 weeks. We walked in a line, chained together at the neck, stumbling through jungle and savanna. Anyone who fell was beaten until they got up or killed if they couldn't. The bodies were left where they dropped. By the time we reached the coast, we'd lost a third of the group, dead from exhaustion, from beatings, from despair. Some simply stopped walking and accepted the machete. I understand that choice now in a way I didn't then. At the coast, they put us in a holding pen, a stone building with no windows, packed with hundreds of people waiting to be sold. The smell was indescribable. Sweat, blood, human waste, death. We slept on top of each other because there was no room to lie down. My wife was separated from me there. The traders divided us by sex, by age, by apparent health. They inspected us like cattle, checking our teeth, squeezing our muscles, looking for signs of disease. Anyone who seemed weak was sold cheaply or killed outright. I saw Abena one more time, across the holding pen. She was crying. I tried to call to her, but a guard hit me with a club. When I looked again, she was gone. I was in that pen for 3 weeks before the ship came. The ship was called the Providence, a British vessel, maybe 100 feet long, with 3 masts and a hull designed to carry as much human cargo as possible. I learned later that it was considered a tight pack ship, meaning they crammed in as many enslaved people as the hold could physically contain. They loaded us at night, one by one. We were unchained from the pen, marched up a gangplank, and forced into the hold. The hold was maybe 5 feet high, not tall enough to stand. We were packed in rows, lying on wooden planks, with maybe 18 inches of space per person. There were 423 of us in that hold, 423 human beings, stacked like firewood, chained to the floor. The smell hit you first, then the heat, then the darkness. There were no windows in the hold, no ventilation except small grates in the ceiling. Within hours, the air was so thick you could barely breathe. And then the ship began to move. The Middle Passage, they call it. The journey from Africa to the Americas for the traders. It's just business. For us, it was hell. I won't describe everything that happened in that hold. Some things are too terrible for words. But I'll tell you what I remember. The chains. We were shackled at the wrists and ankles, connected to the person next to us. If one person moved, everyone moved. If one person had to relieve themselves, everyone suffered the consequence. There were no facilities. We lay in our own waste for weeks. The sickness, disease spread through the hold like fire. Dysentery was the worst. People would start vomiting and wouldn't stop until they were dead. The crew removed bodies every morning, throwing them overboard without ceremony. Some days it was 5 bodies. Some days it was 15. The feeding twice a day. They'd bring us up to the deck in groups, make us eat some kind of porridge, and force us to dance for exercise. They beat drums and made us jump around, still in chains, to keep our muscles from atrophying. They weren't being kind. They just didn't want their cargo to arrive too weak to sell. The women, I could hear them screaming at night from the other section of the hold. The crew did things to them, terrible things. Some of the women stopped screaming. After a while, I think they just went somewhere else in their minds, somewhere the men couldn't reach. By the second week, I'd stopped thinking of myself as human. I was cargo, property, a thing to be transported. The man named Kofi, the fisherman with a wife and children. He was gone, only the body remained. But then something changed. His name was Kwame, an older man, maybe 40, who'd been chained next to me since we left Africa. He'd been a warrior in his village, captured in the same raid that took me. Despite everything, despite the chains and the darkness and the death, he refused to break. He whispered to me at night. When the guards weren't listening, he said, "They want us to forget we're human. That's how they control us. Don't forget, whatever happens, don't forget who you are." I said, "Who I am doesn't matter anymore. I'm a slave now," he said. "No, you're a man in chains." There's a whoosh difference. A slave accepts his fate. A man in chains waits for his moment. Those words stayed with me. In the darkness, in the stench, in the endless suffering, those words became my anchor. By the third week, I started paying attention, watching, learning. I watched the crew's routines. When they fed us, when they cleaned the hold, when they changed shifts. I noticed which guards were cruel and which were merely indifferent. I learned the layout, the ship, memorizing every sound, every creak, every footstep above us. And I started planning. I was a fisherman. I knew ships, not European ships, but the principles were the same. A ship is just a floating structure. It has weaknesses, vulnerable points, places where fire could spread or water could enter. The Providence had a weakness I recognized, the bilge pump. The bilge is the lowest part of the ship, where water collects. Every ship takes on water through small leaks, through rain, through waves. The bilge pump removes that water, keeps the ship afloat. Without it, the ship slowly fills and eventually sinks. On the Providence, the bilge pump was operated by enslaved men. They'd take some of us from the hold, chain us to the pump mechanism, and force us to work for hours. It was brutal labor, but it was also opportunity. I volunteered for pump duty. I told the guards I was strong, that I could work longer than the others. They didn't care about my motives. They just wanted the work done. For 2 weeks, I worked that pump. I learned its mechanism, its rhythm, the sounds it made when it was working properly, and the sounds it made when something was wrong. And I waited. On the 37th day of the voyage, my moment came. We'd hit rough weather, heavy seas, strong winds. The ship was taking on more water than usual, and the pump crews were working around the clock. The guards were tired, distracted, focused on keeping the ship stable rather than watching us closely. That night, during my shift at the pump, I acted. I'd been hiding a piece of metal for weeks, a broken chain link I'd found in the hold. It was small, barely 2 inches long, but it was enough. When the guard turned away, I jammed the metal into the pump mechanism, deep into the gears, where it would cause maximum damage. The pump seized, made a horrible grinding noise, then stopped. The guard ran over, cursing. He tried to restart the pump, but it wouldn't move. The metal was lodged too deep. He called for help. More crew came running. In the confusion, I slipped the keys from a guard's belt. I'd watched him for weeks. Knew exactly where he kept them. I freed myself. Then I freed Quame. Then we freed everyone we could reach in the darkness. 12 of us made it to the deck before the alarm was raised. The fight was brutal. We had nothing but chains and desperation. They had muskets and swords, but we had surprise, and we had nothing left to lose. I killed 3 men that night, wrapped my chain around one's throat and squeezed until he stopped moving, beat another's skull against the deck until it cracked, threw the 3rd overboard into the churning sea. But we were losing. There were too many of them, and we were weak from weeks of starvation and abuse. One by one, my brothers fell. That's when I made the decision that haunts me, the ship's lanterns. They hung from hooks all over the deck, providing light for the night watch. Oil lanterns, filled with whale fat. I grabbed one and threw it at the sails. The fire spread faster than I expected. The canvas caught immediately, flames racing up the rigging like living things. Within minutes, the mainmast was ablaze. The crew panicked. They forgot about us and focused on the fire. Some tried to fight it, throwing water, cutting away burning rope. Others ran for the lifeboats. I shouted to the survivors. The other escaped men who were still standing. Jump! Swim for shore! We were close to land. I'd seen the dark outline of an island on the horizon before the sun set. Maybe a mile away, maybe 2, far, but possible. Kwame hesitated. He pointed at the hold, at the grates that covered the 400 souls still chained below. We can't leave them. I looked at the fire. It was spreading toward the hold. The ship was listing, taking on water where the hull had been damaged by the battle. There was no time, I said. We can't save them. The keys went overboard when the guard fell. The fire will reach them before we could break their chains. Quam's face twisted with anguish. So we just let them die. I grabbed his arm. They're already dead. They were dead the moment they put them on this ship. We don't have to die with them. It was the cruelest thing I've ever said. And it was true. We jumped. The water was cold and rough. Waves crashed over my head, salt burning my eyes. I swam like I'd never swum before, my arms screaming, my lungs burning. Behind me, I could hear the ship groaning, breaking apart, sinking, and I could hear screaming from the hold. As the water rushed in and the fire spread, I could hear 400 voices crying out in terror. I kept swimming. 12 of us made it to shore. Out of 423, 12 survived. 18 crew members died in the fire and the sinking. I don't mourn them, but 30 of my brothers and sisters who were still in the hold, 30 who might have been saved if I'd made different choices, 30 who drowned or burned because I set that fire. They haunt me. We've been on this island for 3 weeks now. It's uninhabited, or at least we haven't found anyone else. We eat fish, coconuts, whatever we can find. We've built shelters from palm fronds. We're surviving, but every night, I dream of the ship. I hear the screaming from the hold. I see the faces of the people I couldn't save. Kwame tells me I did what I had to do, that those 30 would have died anyway, either on the ship or in the cane, fields, or from the whip, that at least 12 of us are free because of what I did. Maybe he's right, but maybe I'm just a murderer who killed his own people to save himself. So here's my question. Am I the asshole? Was I right to sabotage that ship, knowing it would kill people who were just as much victims as I was? Is freedom worth the lives of the innocent? Or did I commit a crime that can never be forgiven? I don't know. I'll probably never know. All I know is that I'm alive, I'm free, and I'll carry those 30 souls with me until the day I die. Let's check the comments from others who weighed in on his impossible choice. Top comment from user Quame the Warrior. I'm one of the 12 survivors. I was there. I watched Kofi make that choice. And I'll tell you something. In that moment, standing on that burning deck, watching our brothers try to fight off armed sailors with nothing but chains, there were no good options, only terrible ones. Kofi chose the option that let some of us live. If he'd done nothing, we'd all be dead or in chains right now. I refuse to call him a murderer. The murderers are the men who built that ship, who chained us in that hold, who treated human beings like cargo. Kofi did what a man does when he's been pushed beyond all limits. He fought back. The cost was terrible, but the alternative was worse. Reply from Kofison off the Gold Coast. Thank you, brother. Your words ease the weight, but they don't remove it. Comment from user Survivor Womanama. I'm one of the 12. I was in the women's section of the hold. I don't know how I got out. When the fire started, everything was chaos. Someone broke my chains. I ran. I jumped. I swam. I don't remember most of it, but I know this. Whatever Kofi did, he gave me a chance. The men who chained me, the sailors who did things to me, they never gave me anything but pain. Kofi gave me hope. That's worth something. That's worth everything. Comment from user Drowned Soul speaking. I am one of the 30 who died. I write this from the bottom of the ocean, where my chains still hold me to the wreckage. Was I angry when the water rushed in? Yes. Was I terrified? Yes. Do I blame Kofi? I don't know. He made a choice. I didn't get to make a choice. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe the only crime is being the one who has to choose. I don't forgive him, but I don't condemn him either. I just wish I'd had the chance to jump. Reply from Kofison off the Gold Coast. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll say it forever, and it will never be enough. Comment from user Ship Captain Morrison. I was the captain of the Providence. I survived by clinging to wreckage until another ship found me. That savage murdered my crew and destroyed my property. 423 slaves, worth nearly £50,000, lost to the sea because one animal couldn't accept his place. I hope they catch him. I hope they hang him slowly. And I hope every other slave on every other ship hears what happens to those who resist. Reply from Kwameth the Warrior. Your property. We were people. You chained us. You starved us. You raped our women and threw our dead into the sea. Like garbage, and you call us animals? The only animal on that ship was you. I pray we meet again someday. I'll show you what an animal can do. Reply from abolitionist Wilberforce. Captain Morrison, your words condemn you more thoroughly than any court ever could. You speak of property while describing human beings. You mourn prophets while ignoring souls. The institution you serve is an abomination before God and man. It will end, perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but it will end, and history will remember men like you as the monsters you are. Comment from user Abolitionist Granville. I've spent my life fighting to end this evil trade. I've seen the ships. I've heard the testimonies. I've documented the horrors. And I'll tell you this. What Kofi did was not murder, it was war. When you're fighting for your life, for your freedom, for your very humanity, the rules change. The slavers started this war when they put the first African in chains. Every act of resistance, every rebellion, every sabotaged ship is a battle in that war. Kofi is not a criminal. He's a soldier, and soldiers sometimes have to make terrible choices. Comment from user Enslaved in Jamaica. I work the cane fields now. They caught me trying to escape 3 years ago. Beat me until my back was nothing but scars. I've thought about what Kofi did many times, dreamed about it. If I had the chance to sink this whole island and everyone on it, masters and slaves alike, would I do it? I don't know, but I understand why he did. When you've been treated like nothing for so long, when they've taken everything from you, everything, sometimes destroying it all, feels like the only power you have left. Comment from user Preacher from Rhode Island. The Lord teaches us that all life is sacred. Taking a life, any life, is a sin. But the Lord also freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. He sent plagues. He killed the firstborn of every Egyptian family. Was that wrong? Or was it necessary? I don't have easy answers, but I know this. God sees the suffering of the enslaved, and I believe in my heart that he understands what men like Kofi do to survive. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Comment from user Daughter of Kofi. I don't know if my father will ever see this. I don't even know if he's alive. But if you're out there, Baba, if you somehow hear these words, I'm alive. Mama is dead. She died on the ship that took us west. But I survived. I work in a house in Charleston now. I'm 12 years old. I remember your face. I remember the stories you told me about the sea. I remember you fighting to save us. Whatever you did, whatever choices you made, I love you. I'll always love you. And I hope someday, somehow, we find each other again. Reply from Kofison off the Gold Coast. Adwoa, is this really you? My daughter, my little girl. You're alive? Tell me where you are. Tell me how to find you. I'll walk across the ocean if I have to. I'll tear down every wall between us. My daughter is alive. My daughter is alive. 2 months after the original post, a final update appeared. Update from Kofison off the Gold Coast. I'm writing this from a ship bound for Charleston. After I saw my daughter's message, everything changed. I couldn't stay on that island anymore. I couldn't hide while she was out there, enslaved, waiting, Kwame tried to stop me. He said it was suicide, that the moment I set foot in the colonies, they'd recognize me as an escaped slave and either kill me or put me back in chains. He was probably right, but my daughter is alive. My little Adwoa, who I thought I'd lost forever, is alive and working in some white man's house in Charleston. She's 12 years old. She's been a slave for 2 years, and she still remembers me. How can I hide in a cave while she suffers? We found a trading ship that stopped at our island for water. I convinced the captain I was a free black man from the islands, looking for work. He needed sailors. I know ships. It was enough. The other survivors begged me not to go. They said I was throwing away the freedom we'd fought and died for. They said I was betraying the 30 who drowned. Maybe they're right, but those 30 are dead. My daughter is alive, and a father who won't risk everything for his child isn't worthy of being called a father. I don't know what's going to happen when I reach Charleston. I don't know if I'll find Adwoa or if she'll even recognize me. I don't know if I'll be caught, whipped, hanged. But I know I have to try. The 30 souls I carry, the ones who died in that hold. Maybe this is how I honor them, by refusing to stop fighting, by refusing to accept that slavery gets the final word, by saving one more person, even if it costs me everything. Kwame said something to me before I left. He said, "You started a war on that ship, Kofi. Maybe this is how you finish it." I don't know about wars. I'm just a fisherman who wants to see his daughter again. But if war is what it takes, then I'll be a soldier. Pray for me. Pray for Adwoa. And pray for the 30 who couldn't jump. Whatever happens next, I regret nothing. Final comment from user Historian from the Future. We don't know what happened to Kofi. History doesn't record the fates of individual enslaved people, only their numbers. But we know this. Between 1500 and 1865, an estimated 12 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic. 2 million died during the Middle Passage alone, and throughout that horror, there were always people like Kofi, people who fought back, people who sabotaged ships, led rebellions, escaped into swamps and mountains and forests, people who refused to accept that chains were their destiny. Some succeeded, most died trying, but every act of resistance, every moment of defiance was a crack in the foundation of an evil institution. 80 years. After Kofi's story, the transatlantic slave trade was abolished. 30 years after that, slavery itself ended in America. It took too long. It cost too many lives. But it ended, and it ended, in part because people like Kofi refused to be cargo, refused to be property, refused to let the slavers win. This is the story of Kofi, a fisherman who became a fighter, a father who crossed an ocean twice, once in chains and once by choice, a man who made an impossible decision and lived with its weight for the rest of his days. Was he right? Was he wrong? Those are questions without answers, because when you're facing a choice between slavery and death, between saving some and losing all, the normal rules don't apply. All we can do is remember. Remember the 12 who escaped. Remember the 30 who drowned. Remember the millions who suffered through the darkest chapter in human history. And remember that, even in the deepest darkness, there were always people who reached for the light. If you're still watching, thank you. This story was hard to tell. It was hard to research. It was hard to write. But it matters. The Middle Passage matters. The people who survived it and the people who didn't. They all matter. Next time, we're going to medieval England, where a doctor must decide whether to warn his village about the Black Death when the authorities have ordered silence. Drop a comment. What would you have done in Kofi's place? Is there ever a justification for actions that harm innocent people to secure freedom? These are questions humanity has wrestled with for centuries. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and remember, history isn't just kings and battles. It's ordinary people facing extraordinary horrors. People just like us. People who deserve to be remembered. See you next time.